This is White Plains Week, the weekly news roundup. With your moderator, John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter. Jim Benaroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And Peter Katz, noted broadcaster and journalist. White Plains Week, what's happened, who are the newsmakers, and what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. Now, White Plains Week.
Happy holidays, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains and Westchester. Yours truly, John Bailey, the Citizen-Net reporter. Welcome to the annual White Plains Week Stories of the Year show. Peter Katz and Jim Benaroff are on assignment tonight. Fasten your seatbelts. We've got 30 stories coming at you in 28 minutes. The opening slide, if you please. Well, you remember how cold it was last January when we started 2015? It was like 15 degrees, and we really enjoyed just such a, not really enjoyed, a frigid winter. Silver Lake froze, and I'm telling you, it's quite different this year, isn't it, fans? 70 degrees. 70 degrees for Christmas Day predicted. Then, in January, a real shocker from Preet Bharara. He indicted Assemblyman Sheldon Silver, and at the end of the year, Mr. Silver was found guilty of fraud charges, and then this was just really an amazing result. He's convicted unanimously. And then in January, the Common Council removed the planning commissioner, Elizabeth Chetney. No particular reason given. Later on, Mr. Mayor Roach said that we decided to go in a different direction. But that was really a stunner. And the school district, White Plains School District, appointed a new superintendent of schools last January, Dr. Paul Freed, who comes to us from the Montvale School District over in New Jersey and has had a fairly quiet start to the school year. We had a sad note in January. Allison Fairhurst, White Plains resident, all her life, a graduate of White Plains High School, died, and we miss her greatly. She was 23, and it's good to remember how precious life is at all the time. Also in January, the Elcor Corporation announced that they had found financing for their project down on 55 Bank Street. And this is the shot of the reclamation that is going on there back in November. And they also had a groundbreaking. Wells Fargo is financing it. It's been 9 years waiting for this to get started. So it started now, and we're coming right along. In February, it started off with a horrible accident on the at the Valhalla crossing back on February the 3rd. A car stalled on the tracks, and the woman tried to get out of the car, couldn't get off the track in time, and the train slammed into her, killing her and her car, killing her and killing 5 other persons. And we got some closure of what possibly might have gone wrong from the NTSB just this past week. And if you want some information on that in much detail, you should check out last week's show, where Peter Katz does a pretty good analysis of what the NTSB has found. No definite cause yet, but a lot of reasons why perhaps this happened. Then there was a robbery again at Turner Corner back in mid-February, and police released this photo of the suspect, who has not yet been apprehended. It was another one of those smash and grab robberies. In March, moving along rapidly on our review of the year, the White Plains assisted the FBI in cracking a national ring that's conducted a robbery in White Plains in, I believe, August of 2014, and it was great work studying video by the White Plains Police that gave the FBI a lead that found that a gang in Detroit had been committing a series of these robberies across the country. And the surveillance paid off again in February when police released this video photo of a gentleman attempting to rob a store in White Plains, and he was immediately apprehended because LOHUD and the Citizen-Net Report popped up this video as soon as the police got it to us, and it was resulted in his being recognized and an arrest being made. And another sad note, Eric Refik went to trial. He was the fireman who drove the wrong way on South Lexington Avenue back in November 2014 and wound up slamming into a newspaper delivery person in a car and killing her and injuring her companion. And that trial started. They threw the book at him, and in July he was convicted, and then he was sentenced just about a month ago. 5 years. In February, a positive thing, Mayor Roach delivered a State of the City address to the Rotary. This a State of the City has never really been given, essentially, to a private group, and Mayor Roach did it for the first time last February, and in that he gave analysis of where the city is. He says he said there was going to be a redesign for the White Plains Pavilion, a redesign for the Grid Properties project, and the Westchester Avenue Hotel complex coming. He also suggested narrowing of Westchester Avenue to promote traffic. He also said they were going to put in a taxi master for the railroad station, which was done later in the year. Seems to be working pretty well. And also announced that he is behind putting more apartment living in the city. And at that time, there was no decision on the French-American School of New York plans for the Ridgeway property. Moving on, and this is as we count down White Plains Week Stories of the Year for 2015, in April, we got a deal on Playland from Westchester County. They decided to give it to Standard Amusements, and they announced it at the boardwalk here in Playland. And then it went to the Parks Committee of the county to review it. And later on in the year, they gave it to Standard Amusements, and Standard Amusements had all summer to evaluate it and was going to give the city an answer by October. Well, surprise, in October, they decided they needed extra time to vet the situation and whether they really wanted to go ahead with the deal, and the county decided, well, okay, we'll give you until May. Now, this is really something, because they've been gung-ho all along, but we'll see what happens in the next few months. Playland had a great year, 550,000 in attendance. That is up 25%. Great parking revenues. What's there to worry about? Now, moving on. In April, the French-American School of New York protest really got a lot of play. About 100 persons marched in front of White Plains High School protesting the French-American School of New York's action to try and build their campus on the Ridgeway School, on the Ridgeway Country Club property. And this was started a whole siege of working the Common Council to try and stop FASD, as they've been saying for the last 4.5 years. Then, in April, later in April, the school budget aid was increased by the state legislature as they passed the budget and used the money from the Paris Bank settlement, about $5 billion, to give $2 billion in new state aid nationwide. They gave White Plains an additional $2 million approximately there to the right of the arrow. And what did the school district do with it? Well, I'll tell you a little later. Now, in May, the shocker of the year, in our opinion, was the night when Commissioner of Public Works Bud Nicoletti was dismissed by the Common Council after 30 years as commissioner. And you know what was really amazing about this? Not one member of the council said one nice word about his 30 years of service. I thought that was pretty shabby. And but he is gone. They appointed Richard Hart to be his successor in September. And he seems to be doing pretty well so far. And moving on, Alfred Del Bello, the county executive, who did a great job for many years and sort of set a new tone as county executive, died. Tell you a little bit about him. He was elected lieutenant governor in 1982 when Mario Cuomo was elected governor and resigned from that position in 1984. He was the first Democrat elected county executive in Westchester County in 1974, succeeding Edwin McCallion, and he died at the age of 80. Mr. DeBello also founded Del Bello, Donnell, Weingarten, Weiss, and Wiedeker in White Plains. He was also a leading personality of Westchester County and very active in seeing Westchester grow. Did. And now we go to the school budget. What did they do with the money that they got from the state? They just put it into the budget and increased it to $205.8 million. It was passed by a 75% margin, and Kay Letizia, lower left, was reelected to the Board of Education, was elected for the first time to the Board of Education, while Rose Lovich and Jim Rickey, upper right, were continued for another term. And Michael Bellantoni, one of the other candidate running, did not get enough votes to unseat either of the incumbents. Now, the school aid that the city got from the state was, as I say, added to the school budget, and but that is not guaranteed. If they take that away and don't increase it, they have to replace it this year. They also used it to give administration raises of 2% across the board. Now, moving on to Mr. Gomez. That is Christopher Gomez. I'm sorry, Mr. Gomez, I could not find the really good picture of you, so please don't take offense. But this is Christopher Gomez, who was appointed planning commissioner. In June, President Obama, right on the Memorial Day weekend, or thereabouts, visited Westchester County, and he was met by Tom Roach down below and Robert Astorino, and they're shown walking away from the plane after the president moved on to a fundraiser. And this, I got to tell you, having the president visit Westchester is, no matter what your politics are, when that big Air Force One arrives, the president gets off, I mean, hope swells in the crowd. You always seem, I am quite taken by what that man and any president of the United States represents to places he or she visits. And then later on in the month of June, it was announced that the police had settled their contract differences with the city and settled them for 6 years, 3 years retroactively, and 3 years running up through June 2018. What is significant about this is the city strategy of taking the police to arbitration and did not seem to work out too well. The police got a 2, 2, 2, and 2, a 2 1/4, and then a 2 1/2 in the last year of the contract. That was the wage settlement, and that is the parameters that the city has to deal with going into negotiations with the other unions, which are taking place, I'm told, at this moment. Also, the persons that joined the police department before 1995, if I remember correctly, got their medical benefits restored as part of that contract. I believe. Correct that if we're wrong. And we continue with a new tradition here in the city of White Plains, and that is putting things on the consent agenda, which is the agenda that isn't really published in any great detail and somewhat obfuscated. They decided they wanted to do red light cameras in the city of White Plains, and they sent a home rule message up to Albany requesting the governor allow them to do this, and in June the governor signed it up, and we now await the city deciding what intersections are going to be selected for red light camera enforcement. And we have dwelt extensively on the history of these red light cameras in other communities, and the communities sometimes wind up paying because they don't have enough tickets written that the companies generally in their contracts require. And that is what is an issue that has to be really looked at and vetted in public as to what kind of contract the city signs. If the mayor says, as he said at the Council of Neighborhood Associations recently on an appearance there, if the mayor says that they are not aimed at raising revenue but safety, then they should not charge for the tickets or whatever, or they should just charge points, or they should really lower the cost of the red light ticket. But really, if you keep the ticket cost where it is and you give out more, this is going to not make White Plains people happy. I know, for one thing, I'm stopping very carefully these days. So that's an issue to really ask the city about. In July, we got a new design proposal for the White Plains Pavilion project. Lennar, a major developer of housing across the country, #2 in building apartment housing, presented this proposal for the White Plains Pavilion site, and it has generally been pretty well accepted. They presented before the zoning board the other evening, and it was quite well. The planning board, my mistake. They presented to the planning board. The planning board was quite taken by it. One member of the planning board actually said, "It looks like something from." Oh, wait, confusing. I'm confused here. The proposal is now being looked at, and this is what it looks like is going to happen at the White Plains Pavilion site. Also, coming up, we had the state announce in July that there would be a new preparer of statewide tests. After listening to protests from thousands of parents and teachers across the state for the last 6 months, the Education Department threw out Pearson, who had prepared the tests, and appointed Questar, a company that prepared the achievement tests for the state of Minnesota. And Minnesota was happy with the increased results, was appointed by the state. So we'll see how that works. Will they just make the tests more simple? We don't know. If you wanted the test scores to go up and make it appear as if the teachers were really right and doing a good job, what would you do? How are you going to make the tests a true indicator of how your kids are doing and still make the scores good? Because the scores were not good, ladies and gentlemen. In July also, we had the Capelli Park, long awaited, opened in right next to Grace Church on the right and the Renaissance Square, Ritz-Carlton and hotel and the apartments. So it's a very nice little park, and we're happy the city finally resolved this. In August, we had the vote on the French-American School of New York special permit, which would close Hathaway Lane, and also it would also approve a special permit to build a school on the property. And Nadine Hunt Robinson was leading off on the vote for the FASNY proposal. She is in the deep background, just beyond Beth Smeda, the blonde lady, and then up front was councilman whose name escapes, having a senior moment. We know who he is. But at any rate, Nadine Hunt Robinson led off and reiterated her position as she had stated in June, saying, A, she was worried about the safety issue, and she was worried about the concept of the neighborhood being changed much more so by approving the special permit than it would be had it not changed. In other words, saying that the impact would be greater than the previously what was there, the golf club. And so she voted no on the Hathaway proposal, and the city tabled the special permit, and in effect setting off a chain reaction from French-American School of New York officials who sued the city in September, and that is now in the courts as to they asked the state court to reverse the decision and tell the city to approve it. They called it arbitrary and capricious, the decision. Also in August, the city, again, on, there's the Hathaway Lane headline, and then, if you have the next slide. Yes, there we are, and this was the new zone that the city sent out a request for a proposal for train center, train station redevelopment ideas, and that is the area affected, and it was sort of, again, included on the backup material, not much discussion. And this is also supposedly going to be done in connection with the MTA and Metropolitan Transportation Authority, and it is really going to affect that area. This is a major policy shift, and it also has to hook up with the bus transit setup that the state has yet to tell us what it's going to be. They're getting a little late, since it should be ready to go in 2016, late 2016, when the Tappan Zee Bridge is supposed to be completed to handle 2 lanes of traffic before they start the second Tappan Zee Bridge. And of course, this year we have often said on the show that it seemed as if the Tappan Zee Bridge was not progressing as fast as it should if they were going to be done with the whole thing by 2018. And they admitted that they were about 6 months behind this fall. So is that all the months they're behind? They've had great weather. We'll see how they do. I think that they have to have the concrete laid down there in at least 6 months. Otherwise, there's no way they're going to finish that by the end of 2016, as they promised. They're deep into 2016. Now, school scores. Not a good thing happened. The White Plains School District was recorded as having only 30% of 8th graders pass the 2015 Common Core English, only 35% math, and there was only 1% improvement in the second year of the Common Core testing. It just is not a good picture, and we have to really wonder what is going to happen. How is the Common Core being changed? In fact, in September, the governor formed a Common Core task force, which reported back in December, calling for an overhaul of Common Core standards. Will teachers, superintendents of schools improve the tests with their input, as the governor wants them to do? The city also approved Parsons Brinkerhoff to devise an $800,000 study of best developments for the Trans Center right after the RFP deadline basically expired September the 1st. So we await that. Mayor Tom Roach formed a multi-trans center task force to involve the community and interact with Parsons Brinkerhoff in preparing that survey. So a lot of task force. Let's hope they get the tasks done, because there are a lot of tasks left undone. Nadine Hunt Robinson was elected to the Common Council in her own right, as were Dennis Crolian and Milagros Lacuna, defeating the lone Republican Anne Marie Encarnaco. The White Plains New Year's celebration takes place 10 to midnight, New Year's Eve, December 31st, in Renaissance Square. There will be 4 gated entry security entrances, and the city has banned flying remote-controlled drones during the festivities, so we'll hope you enjoy it. A lot of great stuff. And just within the last week, here in December, the city re-established the position of Deputy Commissioner of Public Safety. And right now, I just want to say, you should have a happy and joyous holiday and New Year. From Peter Katz, Jim Benaroff, and yours truly, John Bailey, the Citizen Net reporter. And that's what happened, mostly in 2015. John Bailey, good night for White Plains Week.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains Citizen Net reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Benaroff speaking.